Welcome to the Human Side of Money, a show dedicated to equipping financial advisors with the skill set required to work with emotional human beings on the emotionally charged topic of money. You'll get practical tips and insights on applying behavioral finance into your practice from conversations with fellow advisors, industry consultants, and experts in the fields of behavior, psychology, communication, and more. Each episode is designed to help you enhance client outcomes of your advisory business. Now here's your host, Brendan Frazier.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Human Side of Money powered by RFG Advisory, where today we're going to talk about what advisors say is the number one barrier to growth. But we're not just going to talk about what advisors say is the number one barrier. We're going to talk about what you can do about it, how to overcome the number one barrier to growth, how to overcome the number one thing that's standing in the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. And the best way I know how to set the foundation, set the stage for this conversation is to take you back to the end of 2025 to a sushi restaurant in Nashville where a couple of advisors and I were sitting there getting lunch at the end of the year. And one of them looked at me and he said, "Hey, Brendan, you talk to a lot of people. You do a lot of podcasts. You've got your pulse on the industry. You talk to a lot of advisors. Based on what you've learned over the past year through those conversations, if you could teach a group of advisors one thing that would have the biggest impact, what would it be?" So I sat there and I thought for a second, ate a little bit more sushi. The answer came to me almost immediately, but it seems so easy. It seems so simple that I sat there and thought, if I say this right now, it's going to seem like I didn't put enough thought into it. I wanted to make it feel like, hey, this is a really good answer. And the more thought I put into it, the more legitimate it will probably feel like it is. And so I bought myself a little bit of time, said I needed to go back and think about it so I could get back to him on it. But my answer immediately, and still to this day, is some version of this. If you want to grow, if you want to close the gap between where you are today and where you want to be, the most important thing, the thing that will have the biggest impact is how you allocate your time. It's how you allocate your time. And I'm somewhat validated in this by the fact that there's a lot of research done naturally throughout the industry where firms and businesses and research departments and people will go, hey, we want to try to identify what are the primary drivers of growth? What are the primary drivers of scaling a business in this industry? And you don't have to go far. You can go to Google. You can go to your AI of choice, ChatGPT, Claude. And what you're going to find is that study after study, research after research shows that the number one barrier to growth for financial advisors and financial advisory firms is a lack of time. It's that simple. It's a lack of time. So think about it like this. How many of you have ever sat there and you've thought to yourself some version of this? One of these three things. One, you go, I know what I need to do to close the gap, to get from where I am to where I want to be. I just don't have enough time. I can't figure out when to do it. Or you think to yourself, I know what it is that I need to do. I know what it is I should be doing. And I just, quite frankly, I haven't done it. Or you sit there and you think to yourself, I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do. I'm going to do it. But I don't know exactly what to do next. For example, you go, hey, I do need to build out a social media strategy, a digital marketing strategy. I do need to do more networking. I do need to get more referrals. If you've sat there and you've thought any of those things, you don't have a willpower problem. You don't have a time management problem. You just need a better system to focus your priorities and manage your time or allocate your time. I'm guessing that pretty much everybody here, pretty much everybody listening at some point in time has had a day where you come in and you know exactly what it is that you're going to do. You sit down and you go, okay, I need to do this. I need to focus on this today. This is one of the most important things that I can do. I blocked out time for it. And then the next thing, you get an email that comes in from a client with an urgent request that you need to take care of. You have a team member that comes in, knocks on the door, and has a question that they need to ask pretty urgently. Then you go into a meeting with a client maybe a team member, that meeting runs long. And then the next thing you know, that meeting ends, you sit back down, it's noon, you go, I need to eat lunch. 1:00 rolls around after lunch. You go, okay, now I need to go back to working on that thing. And once you start working on that thing that you need to make sure that you do, something else urgent pops up. And the next thing you know, you look up and it's 5:30, it's the end of the day, whatever time of day that is for you. And you still haven't gotten done the thing that you needed to do. And you sit there and you think to yourself, gosh, I need to move this. Okay, I'll move it to tomorrow. That'll go to my to-do list for tomorrow. It goes to tomorrow. And you look up, it's 2 months later and it's still on your to-do list. You get to the point where you go, it feels impossible to grow and to do the things that I need to do to grow because I'm constantly pulled in so many different directions. It's completely normal. It's completely understandable. And that's why we're dedicated an entire episode to helping you figure out exactly what it is that you need to do to fix it. Which is why in this episode, we're going to break down why you feel this way, why it keeps happening, and what you can do to fix it. Because I'm guessing you've probably sat there and you've looked up or you've understood, you've tried some time management hacks. You've looked up productivity hacks. You've tried those. They haven't worked. You've probably tried going, hey, I guess I probably just need to put in some longer hours. I need to work harder for the time being. You think that's the answer, and then that doesn't work. Here's the thing. Those things don't work because this is not a time management problem. Despite what most gurus would tell you, this is not a time management problem. It's a design problem. It's a systems problem. You don't need to get better at time management. You need to get better at building a system that aligns with what it is that you want to do when you want to do it, when you have the energy to do it. Here's what somebody told me. I guess this was in the last month or so when I was doing all the research on time management and productivity and time systems and time being the number one barrier to growth and how we overcome it, all that stuff. Over the past month, I sat down and I talked to somebody who said, you know what, Brendan, it can be as simple as this. Think about where you are today. Think about where it is that you want to be. And where you are today and where you want to be, there's a gap. Now, picture somebody that's there, who's already where you want to be, who's at the point that you're aiming for, that you're striving for. There's a really, really good chance that the gap between where you are today and where you want to be, where that person is filled by the fact that that person spent and managed and allocated their time better than you do. And if that's not the case, if they spend it and allocate it the same, they've had more time to get there. Time is the main variable that closes that gap. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you everything you need to build a time operating system that gives you the capacity that you need, the control that you need to actually grow your business and fill the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. Now, I have something really, really important that I want to say. This probably to a lot of you at this point, you think, hey, this seems kind of simple. It seems kind of elementary. Like, oh, great. This is about time and how to manage time. I know it's important. This is one of those things that is really, really simple in theory and really, really hard to execute. And so if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, I'm tempted to just not listen because there's nothing I've never heard before, just know that if there's any tension between where you are and where you want to be, that's a time problem. And you're going to learn something today that's going to help you bridge that gap without question. But here's what I know for sure is that we're going to go through some ideas, strategies, tools, techniques to help you better optimize your time for sure. And I would imagine that probably none of them are going to blow your mind. You may have heard of a lot of them. We're going to focus on how to actually do them. So that's why you should keep listening. But here's what we're also going to do. We're not just going to talk about the typical time management techniques. At the end, we're going to go a completely different angle and talk about why time management techniques and time management systems fail. And we're going to look at it through the lens of behavior and psychology to make sure that you actually stick to it and get the results that you're looking for. So here's the plan. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what the numbers, what the stats, what the data, what the research tells us about time management in the financial advice industry. Then we're going to talk about the importance of a time audit and how to do a time audit. Those things will both be quick. We're going to spend the bulk of our time on number 3. Number 3 is how do you design a time operating system around the 3 pillars of advisor growth. We're going to walk through each one of those, help you figure out which one is the most important for you to focus on. And at the end, we're going to get back to what I mentioned earlier, the behavioral and psychological element of a time operating system that you can actually stick to that will create results. I guess I'll at least say this. This should feel and sound and hit different than any other article you've read, podcast you've listened to, or content that you've consumed around how to optimize your time. Once we're done here in a few minutes, you should be pretty clear on what it is that you need to do, exactly what you need to do to maximize and optimize your time. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is look at what the stats and the research tell us about time usage in financial advice, in financial services. Fidelity did a pretty great study on this that released in 2024. One of the things that came out of it was that advisors say, only 3 out of 10 advisors say that they have a way to proactively, intentionally manage their time. Next thing that came out of it was that the average advisor spends about 40% of their time with clients or on marketing and business development. And the rest of the time is spent primarily on administrative items and then middle and back office type activities, reacting to client requests, administrative, operational stuff, planning and investment work, reactive client service. It's the majority of time is spent not with clients or with prospects or focused on growing. It's spent on these other things. And if you think about it and you go, okay, how do I grow more? One of these simple equations would be, well, you spend more time focused on growth. What leads to growth? The highest activities, the highest and best use that lead to growth are to spend more time with clients, enhancing the client experience, and or on marketing and business development activities. So in other words, if 40% is spent with clients in marketing and business development and 60 on the rest of the business, the primary question in your business becomes, how do I shift that ratio to be 50-50? Let's start there and go, how could I at least split my time to be 50-50? And let's see what kind of difference that makes. Now we take what we just said to the next level, where Fidelity went and said, okay, let's start mapping this out in quantitative terms. Let's start looking at it and going, okay, what is the cost or the impact of spending more time with clients or marketing or on business development? So 18 and a half hours was the average amount of time per week that an advisor spends with clients or doing marketing and business development activities. So Fidelity went in and they said, okay, let's see what would happen if we said, let's take 5 hours per week and shift it from non-revenue generating activities and shift 5 hours a week into client time or marketing and business development time. What type of impact would that have on an advisor or an advisory firm and their business? And what they found was that it was about a 27% increase in annual revenue. 5 extra hours per week with clients who are focused on marketing and business development leads to a 27% increase in revenue. The way that they did it was based on a firm with $1 million in annual revenue. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, okay, great, I don't have $1 million in annual revenue. Or you're thinking to yourself, great, we have a lot more than $1 million in annual revenue. Does that 27% map perfectly? No, but the concept stays the same. More time spent with clients or focused on growth, marketing, or business development leads to more revenue. And this isn't the only study that backs it up. There's a lot of studies that confirm this. What Fidelity found was that a 27% increase in revenue means that if you're $1 million revenue firm, by spending 5 additional hours per week with clients or focused on marketing and business development, it leads to, for those of you that are great at math, $270,000 in additional revenue for that year, for 1 year. That then adds to the next year, but that doesn't even consider what you could add in more additional revenue for the following year, and year 3, and year 4, and year 5. You don't have to be great at math or be a compound interest expert to see the impact that spending more time with clients or on marketing and business development has on an advisory business. This is why it's constantly reported that lack of time is the number one barrier to growth. Now, here's what we do about it. Before we get rolling on that, before we start going into how do you shift more of your time to things that matter, to the highest and best use, to things that generate growth, I want you to know that for those of you that are listening while you're working out, while you're doing dishes, while you're walking your dog, and you're sitting there going, this is good, but I'm not in a place where I can actually focus and do this right now. We built a worksheet or a guide to go along with this for you. So you go to the episode summary on the RFG Advisory website, www.rfgadvisory.com, or you go to the show notes in the podcast player that you're listening on, and in there will be a link to a guide called From Reactive to Intentional, and it's going to walk you through some of the exercises that I'm about to talk through and go through with you, so you don't just hear them, you can actually download that and follow along and do them. So if you're take a minute to do that, go grab that guide so you can follow along and do these exercises. The very first thing that you need to do, that you have to do, it's not fun, but it's crucial, is a time audit. The best way I know how to describe a time audit is to say it's essentially the cash flow and budgeting exercise of financial planning, or it's the calorie tracking exercise for weight loss. It's the thing that nobody actually really wants to do because it's time consuming and it's tedious. Also, it's exposing. It shows you with money, for example, it'll expose where you've been spending money that you may not be entirely proud of. With calories, it shows you how unhealthy you've been eating. With time, it's going to show you that while you think you manage your time well, it'll highlight pretty clearly that you aren't as good as you think at it. And that's good. That's what we want. That's what we're hoping for. So there's again, in the PDF download, in the document, there's an exercise we take you through to do that. I'll talk you through it now. There's a simple way to do it where you look at 5 things, 5 different activities. And for each one of those, you say, how is my time allocated to, what percentage of my time is allocated to that today? And then what would it look like ideally? Now, here's another thing. For those of you that are AI fluent, AI forward, want to leverage AI, one of the things you can do that'll probably be for another episode or probably even like a webinar is you can go in and use your AI tool of choice if it's connected to your calendar and say, hey, here's what my optimal day would look like. Here's what my optimal breakdown of client-facing and marketing business development activity would look like. Look at my calendar and tell me, am I aligned with what I want to be doing and where do I need to make changes? And it'll do amazing things. I'm just going to throw that out there. That'll be for another episode. But those of you that are fluent with AI, you've done things like it before, you've got it connected to your calendar and your email and everything, go in and do that. You'll be amazed at what it does. It'll expose you, and that's actually what you want. So 5 things, if you want to do this manually, that you want to look at. Number 1 is revenue generating activities. What % of your time today would you say is spent on revenue generating activities? But what's your ideal time? And then you go to the next one. You say, what % of my time today is spent on planning and investment work? What would it be ideally? Write those 2 numbers down. Then you go to the third line. What % of my time today is spent on reactive client service work? And what would it be ideally? Write those 2 numbers down. What % of my time today in the fourth line is spent on administrative and operational items? Write that number down. Write your ideal number. Last one, the most convicting one. Reactive and unplanned interruptions. What % of your time today is spent on reactive, unplanned interruptions? And what would it ideally look like? Now, I don't know of any advisor. Well, that's not entirely true. Most advisors that go through this, they do it. And what they recognize is that they have too much time spent in the last 4 activities, not enough time spent at the top on revenue generating activities. You'll probably find the same, but you still need to go through and do it because it'll be eye-opening. And here's what it's like. It's like driving along a street where you know the speed limit's 30 miles an hour. You know you always drive fast, but sometimes they set up those speed limit signs to let you know how fast you're going, and you're on a street where it's 30 miles an hour, but they set up the sign, you look at it and it says 40, and you're like, I know I always drive fast, but man, I didn't know I was driving that fast, and it forces you to slow down. This is going to do the same thing. It creates awareness. It forces you to look at it and go, okay, I need to spend and allocate more time on the things that actually matter, to spend more time with clients or focused on marketing and business development. The time audit is a crucial first step in this process to create awareness and give us a guide for what we need to do moving forward. Once you've done the time audit, then the next step is to figure out, okay, now what do I need to do to optimize my schedule? Or better yet, as we said earlier, it's not a time management problem, it's a systems problem. So we want to talk about what are the 3 pillars of an effective time operating system. Number 1, you design your time to prioritize what matters most. Number 2 is you protect your focus. Number 3 is managing your energy. Now, what would be pretty tempting and easy to do at this point is to sit here and go through each one of those 3 things and list off a bunch of typical time management, productivity tips and techniques that fall into each one of those. And that's certainly one way to do it. We don't want to do that. That's kind of boring. You'll just get a list of ideas. You don't necessarily know what to do with it. What I want to do is give you an idea of what you need to focus on the most. So in other words, instead of giving you a list of ideas and having you choose what you want to do, let's identify where you're at and what you need the most so that you can pick the thing that's most catered to the idea, the technique, the strategy that you most need for yourself and your business at this given point in time. There are 3 growth blockers, is what we'll call them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify each one, read what each one of them sounds like. And as I go through each one of the 3 and tell you what they sound like with some statements, be listening and go, is that me? Which one of these 3 do I fall into? Because once you identify your primary growth blocker, then we're going to match in a minute. We're going to go through these different pillars for the time operating system, and you can figure out which one of the pillars you need to focus on the most. So here we go. Growth blocker number 1 is what we call the unprotected calendar. So if you are, number 1, the unprotected calendar, if that's where you fall into, here's what you think. You think to yourself 3 things. Number 1, my calendar fills up with whatever comes in and I rarely have time for growth work. I end most weeks feeling like I was busy but didn't move the business forward. And lastly, growth activities get pushed to when I have time, but I never have time. If that feels like you, which by the way, it's probably a lot of you, so listen to the next 2 as well. If that feels like you, your growth blocker is the unprotected calendar. Bookmark that. Now let's go to the next one. Maybe the next one's you. Maybe you're thinking that one's me, but I wonder if any of these others resonate more. The second growth blocker is the everything is mind trap. When you're in the everything is mind trap, you think one of these 3 things. You go, I do tasks someone else could handle, but it's faster if I just do it myself. You think, uninterrupted work feels pretty rare. I feel pulled in so many different directions throughout the day. Or you think my phone and my email interrupt my most important work constantly. If that's you, if that resonates, if that feels like you, then your growth blocker is the everything is mind trap. So at this point, you should be leaning one way or the other, either towards the unprotected calendar or the everything is mind trap. Let's go to the last one so you can decide which one is actually you. The last one is called the empty tank. Here's what people say when their growth blocker is the empty tank. It's hard for me to start my most important work because I feel tired or distracted. I know when my energy peaks. I actually know when that is, but my schedule, my calendar doesn't reflect it. Or when I hit a low energy period, when I'm not at my peak, I just simply default to scrolling through social media, mindlessly entertaining myself, or I go to email because it makes me feel productive. That's the empty tank. So you've got 3. You've got the unprotected calendar, the everything is mind trap, or the empty tank. So pick which one of those you most identify with, because as we walk through the 3 pillars of the time operating system, each one of the pillars maps back to the growth blocker. So what's going to happen is if you go, all right, I feel like my biggest issues, my growth blocker is the unprotected calendar. One of the pillars is going to map to that. And we're going to talk about what you do if that's your blocker. Here are the options you can take to get over that. So instead of trying to do everything at once, instead of becoming overwhelmed by a list of time management and productivity techniques, what we want you to do is figure out what is my blocker and what is the most important thing I can do to address that blocker. Okay, so think about which one was yours. The unprotected calendar blocker. Oh, by the way, let me say this before we even get going. If you sat there and you thought to yourself, yeah, my problem, my issue is the everything is mind trap. That's definitely my issue. You don't want to tune out for these other two. You don't want to tune out for the other pillars as we go through them, because the perfect time operating system, the ideal time operating system, doesn't just focus on one of these. It actually optimizes for all three. But you can't do that in one podcast episode. Quite frankly, you can't do that in one coaching session. You can't do that in 1 hour. What what we want to do is help you identify the primary blocker, address that first, and then the ones that aren't primary, you'll come back to. So you still want to listen to these other ones because they're things you're going to come back to and do eventually. They're just not the most important thing to do. What we're trying to do is help you identify what are the most important things that I can do, or what is the most important thing I can do today that will materially and drastically impact my business moving forward. So if you were the unprotected calendar, that's what you resonate with the most, that's your growth blocker, that aligns perfectly with pillar number 1, which is designing your time. There's a quote that I love that sums this up perfectly. It says, "We are kept from our goals not by obstacles, but by a clearer path to a lesser goal." In other words, it's a prioritization issue. So let's go through 3 things that you can do to better prioritize, better focus, and eliminate the issue of the unprotected calendar and design your time for maximum impact. I'm going to go through each one of these 3 things at a high level. What you need to do is not do all 3 of them. You need to pick the one that you feel like will make the biggest impact if you start doing it tomorrow. And number 1 is what we call the top 3. The top 3 means you need to have a weekly top 3 and a daily top 3 that are aligned perfectly with what you need to accomplish, with the most important things that you need to do in your business. At the beginning of each week, you need to map out what are the 3 most important tasks that I can complete this week in alignment with my goals. On Monday, you sit down and you go, okay, these are this is what's most important to me. These are my goals. These are the 3 most important things I need to make sure that I get done this week. And you map those out, called your weekly 3. And then you turn that into a daily 3. And when you turn it into a daily 3, what that means is at the end of each day, before you leave, before you go and do your thing at home, do what you're supposed to do, you write down the 3 most important things that you're going to work on tomorrow. And one of those things should support your weekly 3. So you look at your weekly 3, you figure out what that is, and then you, at the end of the day, you map out the 3 things, the most important things you can accomplish tomorrow. One of them should map back to your weekly 3. And the reason that you write it down at the end of the day is because your brain's in that mode. It's in that way of processing. It's in your productivity brain. It's in your working brain. What you'll find hard if you've done this before is if you come in the next day, the next morning, and you try to map out your 3, you're having to remember where you were and what was on your mind. It's a lot easier to map out your top 3 at the end of the day. So there's a phrase, plan tomorrow today. It's an effective phrase, an effective strategy that people use all the time. You plan tomorrow today, map out your weekly 3, make sure map out your daily 3, make sure one of those is tied back to what you identified as your weekly 3. And then here's the key to this element. You have to make it visible, memorable, and keep it top of mind. You can make it a default screen when you log into or open your browsers. So for me, for example, one of the things that I do is the very first window that I open in my Chrome browser is a Notion dashboard. And on the Notion dashboard, it has my top priorities. It has the focus for what I'm doing and for the firm. And then it also has my top priorities for the quarter so that I can keep that clear. I can anchor into those things and keep them top of mind. But then the other thing you can do that I do, and I highly encourage, is not just keeping it on a computer screen, but actually writing it down every day, because there's power in writing things down. So you can map out your weekly 3 and your daily 3. That'll increase your prioritization and your focus. The second thing that you do to design your time, to protect your calendar, to optimize your results, is create CEO hours. CEO hours are the 2 to 3 hours per day when your energy, your focus, and your cognitive capacity are at their peak. For most people, that's typically mid-morning. Right. So, but you need to know yourself, learn yourself. Know what are my peak 2 to 3 hours when I do my best work. Whenever that is, you block it out in your calendar, and then the rule is that that time frame, that window, is reserved exclusively for your most important work, your revenue generating activities, or your weekly 3 or your daily 3. It's not there for reactive work. It's not there for administrative work. It's designed, it's built in, it's protected to work on the things that are most impactful to your business. Now, is it ideal to get to the point where you have a 2, maybe 3 hour window to do that work? Yes. Now, what we also know is that it's probably not reasonable to think that you're just going to walk in and block out 2 hours and maximize it right away if you've never done it before. No. What we know is that the best way to instill a habit is to start small and then you get big. We're going to talk about that again later. A little preview towards the end of the episode. We talked about the psychology piece. Start by blocking. If it's something that's hard for you to do, start by blocking off 30 minutes. Stick to it in that 30 minutes. No distractions, no browsers up, no notifications. Then go to 60 minutes. Do it for 60 minutes. Then go to 2 hours. See how that works and adapt from there. The last of the design your time pillar is this concept of deep work and flow. There's a lot of research out there from Cal Newport on deep work, flow, from, I don't even know the guy's name, but he wrote a book on it. I know the guy's name. I don't know how to pronounce it. He wrote a book on it. Dr. Jordan Hutchison, my colleague at RFG, has a lot. He's done a ton of work and a ton of research on it as well. He came on and talked about the flow state for advisors in episode 72. You can go back and listen to that. But deep work, flow state is when you're in a state where you go, I could do this all day. You look up, this is also the elementary definition. You go, hey, this is something I love doing. I would do it any day. Time flies by when I'm doing it. I look up and it's 2 to 3 hours later and I didn't even realize that happened. You want to utilize your CEO hours and your highest and best use of your time to direct it towards things that get you in a flow state. There are also ways to induce flow state. So you can induce flow state. You can find flow by doing a few things. Number one, you need to pick the ideal time of day when you're at your best as far as your cognitive capacity. Block the time in your calendar. Eliminate all distractions. Nothing on your desk. No browsers open. No email. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Know what you're working on going into it. So be clear and, hey, once this time hits, here's exactly what I'm going to be doing and what I'm going to be working on. And then lastly, seems subtle, of equal importance to the rest of them, is when you're in that time period where you're in a flow state, when you're working on a focused, most important thing, have a journal, have a notebook right next to you, piece of paper, where you can jot down things that come up as they come up, where you're inevitably going to have moments where you go, you're in the middle of doing good work and you think, oh yeah, I need to do that today. You don't want to go to your calendar or open your email. You just want to have a piece of paper where you write down the things that pop up so that when your time's over, when you're out of flow state, you can go back and address those things. That's pillar number 1. Design your time. Perfect for those of you that were a part of the unprotected calendar. So now let's go to the everything is mine trap. Those of you that thought my growth blocker is that everything is mine, the pillar of the time operating system you want to focus on is protecting your focus. Dan Sullivan, who's written a lot of books, strategic coach, great at what he does. He has this quote that I love for this. He says, if you do everything yourself in your business, you've built a prison instead of a company. If you do everything yourself in your business and you think you need to do it, you've built not a company, you've built a prison. There's 2 things you can do about it. Number 1 is delegation mapping. That's what we want to spend the majority of our time talking about. Delegation mapping says I need to figure out what only I can do and then stop doing everything else and let somebody else do everything else. So I'll ask you this question, and I'm going to ask you this question. You have to go through and do the work yourself to figure out what it is. But you need to sit down, look at your calendar, look at your to-dos, look at your tasks, and ask yourself, what activities that I do on a regular basis can only I, as the advisor, do in the business? What are the things that literally only I can do? And it needs to be no more than 3 to 5 things. If it's more than 3 to 5 things, you have a delegation problem. We're going to talk about that in a second, but it needs to be no more than 3 to 5 things. Obviously, meeting with clients is something that you need to do. COI cultivation, probably something that you need to do. There are things that you definitely need to do, and then there are things that somebody else can do. If you're having trouble getting to that point, if you sit there and you go, you know what, I think this is probably something you're going, hey, I look at all these things that I'm doing. I think I need to do them all. I don't know if anybody else can do them. Let's go a different route. I'm going to ask you 2 different questions. My favorite one on this path is to say, look at your calendar from the past week and then the past 2 weeks. What is the one thing, if you could remove, that you would never do again and be happy about it? Or you can say, look at your calendar for the next week to 2 weeks and ask yourself, what am I dreading most on my calendar over the course of the next 2 weeks? Either way, whatever your answer is for both of those, you should stop doing it. Stop doing it. It's that simple. And you're going to sit there and go, well, okay, Brendan, all right, yeah, okay. I get it. I don't like it, but I have to. No, you don't. If it's not meeting with clients, you don't have to do it. I would even say if it is meeting with clients, you still don't have to do it. There are a lot of things that you can do in an advisory firm, and you want to find the thing or the things that you enjoy doing the most. That's where you're going to find the most growth, the most impact, the most joy, the most fun, the most well-being. It's that simple. So if you're thinking, okay, Brendan, I hear what you're saying, it's just not that easy. I promise it is. You just have to challenge yourself a little bit. There's a few more things, a few other ways we can look at it. When it comes to delegation, when you look at a task and you think, okay, I don't love doing this, it's not what I need to do, then you go through the 3-step triage process. Number 1, can I automate it? Whatever the task is, can it be automated to technology, to AI? If not, then you think, okay, if it can't be automated, can it be delegated? Can somebody else do it? Who can do it other than me? And if it can't be delegated, then you ask yourself, can we eliminate it? Do we really need it? Automate, delegate, eliminate. If it passes, if you can't automate it, if you can't delegate it, and you don't really need it, it's probably just not worth doing in the first place. There are a few things that will pass through there where you go, actually, we still probably do really need to do it. For the most part, if anything goes through those 3 things, you probably don't need to do it. And if you think you do, it's just your own fear keeping you from doing it. So pick one task that you don't like doing, that you're already doing, that you don't need to do, and run it through this filter. Pick the one and go, am I going to automate it, delegate it, or eliminate it? And do that tomorrow, and you'll look up next week and you'll go, wow, that feels good. And then you'll start thinking, okay, what's the next task that I can automate, delegate, or eliminate? Number 2, on protecting your focus. If you're sitting there going, hey, the everything is mind trap, I need to do everything. It's a focus protection problem. We need to delegate more. Here's the other thing. Second thing you need to do is eliminate reactive email and phone habits. So there's some studies out there, some research that says that the average professional checks email 74 times per day. 74 times a day. Now, what doesn't get talked about enough is this idea, and this is probably a conversation for another episode, but this idea of context switching, that when you're focused on one thing and you switch to another, there's research that says that it can take about 23 minutes to fully switch and lock in on the next thing. So if you're locked in on one thing and you move to another, it can be about 23 minutes before you actually get locked in on the next thing. So what do we do about it? Because you have to check emails. You can't ignore it. You have things that need to be done. You don't need to check it 74 times a day. Right? What can you do? Here's the easy fix. Some of you are going to hear this and you're going to go, oh, no way. I can't do that. The good news is you can. You just got to get used to it. But the fix is you block out, you map out, you design 1 to 3 scheduled windows per day where you specifically check your email. Put it in your calendar as email processing. And you don't check your email except for when you have those windows in your day. The less windows you have, the better. Maybe somebody else can check it for you. But start with 3 if you need to. If you have an email problem and you're sitting there going, okay, I got to check my email. I got to check it. I wonder what's happening. Start with 3 windows. Then try to dial it back to 2. Try to find somebody that can manage your email. Here's the thing. Once you get to that window, you don't just sit there and mindlessly scroll through it. You email triage doing 3 things. You look through every single email during that time and you go, I need to do one of 3 things with this email. I either need to respond right now. Sorry, one of 4 things. I either need to respond right now. I need to archive it so I can come back to it later. I need to delete it because it doesn't actually matter. Or it's something so important. If I can't do it right now, if I can't respond right now, if I can't address it right now, then I need to schedule it. Schedule it meaning I either need to schedule time with a person or I need to schedule time to do the thing that needs to be done in the email. So you either respond to it if it's quick, less than 2 minutes. If it's not, you need to schedule it, find a time to put it on your calendar. Otherwise, you archive it or delete it. 1 to 3 blocks a day. Trust me, no one's ever said, hey, Brendan, I started checking my email less and this feels miserable. It's freeing. And you realize that you're not distracted. You can focus on the things that matter the most. That's pillar number 2, which takes us to pillar number 3 for those of you whose growth blocker. There we go, growth blocker. For those of you whose growth blocker was the empty tank, pillar number 3 is how do you effectively manage your energy? Because here's the thing, energy is the currency of productivity. We do think a lot about time. We think about time allocation, time resource. Energy is just as important as time. So when it comes to how do you best manage your energy, there's 2 ways that you do it. Number 1 is energy mapping, and number 2 is the energy restore protocol. So let's start with energy mapping. Energy mapping is the simple idea, the simple concept that there are 3 different zones that you'll go through each and every day. From an energy management standpoint, you'll have your highest and best use of energy, which is where you have your peak focus. You'll have a medium level of energy, which is where you're pretty functional, but you're not at your best. And you have a low period of energy where you're at a reduced mental capacity. And so for most people, this is not everybody, by the way, it differs. You have to know yourself. For most people, high focus is mid-morning, medium focus is early afternoon, and then the low focus is later in the afternoon. And so the idea of energy mapping is you align your energy with the task at hand. So the most important tasks that need to be done the deep work needs to be done, aligns with when you're in your highest energy zone. And then the more operational, administrative tasks go in the low zone. Now, there's also an element of do what feels best, do what works for you in this from the standpoint of you have to learn what you do best in each energy zone. So for me personally, I do my best reading, creative work, deep thinking, problem solving, coaching, building work in the mornings before noon. That's when I feel like I can research and read and think the best. And then what I know is that as it gets to the afternoon, I sort of start fading from that. But that's when I'm best when it comes to actually having meetings and conversations. I'm not as dialed in from a mental standpoint, but it's easy for me to have conversations at that point. And so the way that I map my energy to my calendar is I say, if I'm going to have a meeting with somebody, ideally, if possible, it's going to be in the afternoon because that's when I have my best conversational energy. I need to reserve the mornings for deep work, deep thinking, mapping out things, strategic thinking, reading and learning, that sort of thing. Now, it doesn't work that way every single day, but that's the general structure that I operate from because I've learned how my body best adapts and I've learned how to best map what I'm doing to the energy that I have to give to it. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a learning process, but by and large, most people function best in the morning. So your best work, your most deep thinking work, your strategic work is usually best placed in the morning. Now, there's a second piece of this, which is the reality is energy is not this ever-living, unlimited, untappable resource. There are times where you're supposed to have energy because you think you're going to have it, and you don't. Or there are times when you go, hey, I'm at the low period of my day. So, I've done a lot of good thinking in the morning. Here I'm in the afternoon. I'm struggling, but I need to be at my best. I don't have the energy that I need. If that's the case, if you feel that, you need an energy restore protocol. And the key to that is saying, hey, if I know I need to be operating at a higher level and I'm not there with my energy and my mental capacity, I need to have a pre-built list of things that I know that work that will help elevate me to that point. It's like a multiple choice thing where you go, here's what I know I can do to help restore my energy, boost my energy, to align my energy with what I need at this point in time. So let me give you a few examples. You come up with your own energy restore protocol. You come up with your own thing that works for you. Here are some examples that I've heard and researched and found. Number 1, you just stand up, stretch, walk around. Give yourself a little bit of a break physically and mentally. Number two, probably more powerful, is to stand up and then go outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight, feel better about yourself, go for a walk while you're out there, move around, do some stretching. I know some people that say, hey, if I need to restore, I do that. But then I also make sure that I do some breath work. Another one that I know a lot of people do is they'll turn on music that uplifts their mood, that gets them in the right headspace, that gets them to where they need to be. The key is to know when your energy drops and you need it to raise, you have a list of things that you know that work for you that you can go to boost your energy when you need it the most. So there you go. There you have it. There's not a list of time management or productivity hacks. It's a list of things that effectively help you better optimize and manage your time to build a time operating system based on what you need the most right now. The hope is, the goal is, as we were going through that you heard one thing that you can take back and you can apply tomorrow that will help you optimize and maximize your time to eliminate the number one barrier to growth, which is a lack of time. Now, I said earlier, we're going to put a different spin on this. I would imagine that a lot of these things that we just talked through, there's a good chance that you listened and none of it blew your mind. None of it you said, oh, wow, I've never thought about that before. Oh, wow, that was mind-blowing. That was groundbreaking. The problem is that oftentimes the things we need the most are the most simplistic. Here's what I do know. What I do know is that knowing what to do and doing it are two different things. So I had an advisor that we work with. He's up in Ohio a couple weeks ago. He said, hey, Brendan, I went to, so where this whole thing came from was a workshop we did at our growth retreat in March down in Florida. One of our advisors was there. We went through all these. We did a 2-hour thing. We helped them map out what they need to do. One of them reached out to me afterwards and said, hey, Brendan, I heard all that and it was good and I liked it. It was helpful. My problem isn't doing that, or it's not knowing what to do. I've tried those things. I just can't get myself to actually do it. I building out the daily 3 and the weekly 3. Great idea. I've tried it. I can't stick with it. The email processing, I've tried it. I can't stick with it. Whatever it is, he goes, Brendan, it's not, thank you for telling me what to do. I need more help figuring out how to follow through and actually do it. To which I said, as a chief behavioral officer that's infinitely fascinated with human beings and psychology and behavior change, I totally recognize that just telling you what to do should not be sufficient. We need to factor in the behavioral and psychological components of this that will help you maximize the likelihood that you actually do the thing that you're right now thinking about that you want to do. Okay, so if you're like this advisor and you think, hey, I just need help actually doing it, following through, and sticking with it, 4 things you can do. From a behavioral perspective, number one, when it comes to behavior change and habit formation and sticking with it, is activating your why. The most powerful motivating force that you have for behavior change, for habit formation, for sticking to something is not knowing what you want to do, but getting clear on why you're doing it. Not just getting clear, but reminding yourself of why you're doing it. So it's not just saying, hey, what is it that I want to do? I want to spend an hour focus on the most important thing, doing my daily 3 for the day. No, it's the why behind it. Why is that important? It's important because I want to be able to build a firm where I serve 150 business owner clients, because I believe that when they work with me, I give them the ability to free up their time to increase the value of their business. But more importantly, they get to spend more time with their family because of the work that we do together, because I help them figure out how to use their money, not just to maximize the revenue of their business, but to fund the life that they want to live. That's a powerful why. That will get you to sit there and go, okay, I've got an hour block today. If I don't do this, I don't get to impact more lives. Always, always, always activate your why. Behind every what is a why. And the more you can tap into that motivation, that drive, that emotional activation, the more likely you are to stick to your goal, whether it's a time management system, time operating system, whether it's eating better, whatever it is. Your why is the most powerful driver that you have. And number 2 is clarity. Always be clear. Clarity creates the results that you want, the more clarity you have about what it is that you want to do and when you want to do it, the more likely you are to do it. So you don't just say, hey, when I have this hour that I'm going to spend in the morning, I'm going to do a CEO hour. I'm going to focus on what's most important. No, know exactly how you're going to spend that hour. It goes back to what we talked about with designing your time, where we said you want to plan tomorrow today. You want to know exactly when you come in, what it is that you're going to do that's the highest and best use of your time. Number 3, small wins create big momentum. I was on a podcast in Australia the other day where we were talking about this exact concept, and I kind of started thinking, you know what, this might be one of the most important things I wish I could impart. I mean, a second behind the optimization of time and how you spend your time. I wish that I could get across this idea of small wins create big momentum. If you want to start doing something, anything in your life, any habit, building a time operating system, eating healthier, working out more, start with the smallest goal you can think of and do it for a week. In fact, it should be laughably small. Start by saying, I need a CEO. I need to protect my time. I need a CEO time to focus on my daily 3. Don't set out to do 3 hours. Go, hey, I'm going to try to do it for 15 minutes for a week and see how it goes. And then if that goes well, then the next week you can do 30 minutes. Small wins create big momentum. Whatever it is you decided to do today, start small. You can always expand. Number 4, lastly, just as importantly, is leverage accountability. Put guardrails in place that hold you accountable to the decisions that you make, whether that's a friend, a colleague, a spouse, a partner, whoever it is. Say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Don't underestimate the power of accountability. Let people know, hey, this is what I'm doing. It could be an assistant, could be a fellow advisor, whatever. It doesn't matter. Go, hey, this is what I'm doing. I want you to hold me accountable to it. Accountability has been, always will be a strong force for driving behavior change. Last thing, as we shut this down, as we wrap this up, think about it like this. Time is the only asset that you can't get more of, and it's the only asset that doesn't compound. Once it's spent, it's gone. It's the only asset you cannot get more of. It's the only asset that cannot compound. So if you want to get to where you want to go, close the gap between where you are today and where you want to be, you have to learn how to best spend and allocate your time. You have to learn how to maximize your time and spend it in the highest and best use possible. Take one of the things we talked about today and do it. That's going to help you get there. Remember, start small. Small wins create big momentum. And if nothing else, go find that in the episode summary and the show notes. Go get the PDF download, the guide that walks you through the exercises for how to do it. Pick one thing, start doing it tomorrow. It's going to make a big difference. And if nothing else, always remember, plans and pie charts don't change lives. People do.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the guest. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. The commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by the guest or RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change anytime without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. The guest and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.